we've gone through the eras of families organizing. I remember when
Yeah.
they first started doing the integrating, and you had families protesting outside of prisons and with signs, and I was a part of some of that organizing and trying to get information out for families, and so we've gone through that. We've gone through the litigation process, right, where people are suing CDCR and trying to tell the Supreme Court, hey, look what's going on over here, right? And yet and there's been some victories in some of that stuff, but only minor and only temporary. And
Right.
so yet here we are. It I don't understand what the end game is. You know?
So the CDCR is a machine, right? We're aware it's a machine.
Yeah.
It's a well-oiled machine, meaning like, dude, I've been at them for 2 years and I don't even think I put a dent in them.
Right.
But 60 murders, 60 in 2
Yeah.
years, if that doesn't get anybody's attention,
Right.
nobody's batting an eye. Oh, cool, whatever. It's a new norm. That's foul, dude.
Mhm.
And I'm not gonna say that all 60 were a result of mixing GPs and S and Y, but let's be realistic. I think everything comes into a boiling pot.
Sure.
And I really don't think CDCR gives a shit about lawsuits because now they're taxing COs. I don't know if you're aware of this, bro, but let's say I'm a CO and I accidentally take my cell phone in my pocket into the prison, which is contraband, as a
Right.
CO. Let's say the goon squad catches me. Guess what my penalty is going to be?
Yeah.
They're going to take 10% of my pay cut away from me for 46 months.
Oh shit.
They're taxing, dude. A lot of COs are getting fucking taxed, and everybody's wondering where's that money going.
Right.
They're getting taxed from everywhere, bro. You could even have two. It's called adverse actions. One for 5% for a year, and another one for 10% for up to 46 months. That's a lot of chunk of money
Yeah.
going somewhere. Are they feeding it back into the machine? I don't know.
That's crazy. Hey, that's
Dude.
You know what it is? It's from investigating all those dudes that were back there in the shoe. And they're like, hey, this whole taxing, give me 10 racks
Oh, they
and
learned?
we can fix this. Like,
They
yeah,
learned?
they were like, hey Joe, how come we're not doing this? Right?
So let's talk about the average career length for an employee. If you're a manager, maybe 30 years, 30.
Mm.
First of all, they're not really fixing anything in those 30 years. They're actually
Right.
making matters worse from what I've observed. And then when the heat gets turned up in the kitchen, they just retire,
Yeah.
right? And then the next person fills the seat. It's almost like everybody got amnesia of what the hell just happened, and they just continue that process, bro. That's
Yeah.
why I think it's gone on for so long is people play dumb.
Yeah. Yeah. They're just going with the flow. It's
Really, there's nobody in that hot seat to hold accountable because when it gets too hot, they bounce.
right.
And then they bring in the new person. They're like, oh, well, it wasn't you. So
Right.
just continue
Right.
doing
You
what
got
the
a clean
last dude
slate.
did.
Right. Right. Hey, you got a little cushion though, right? Because you're new. And so you got a little cushion and get what you can get and leave your stamp and make your money before the
Does
seat
that
gets
seem
too hot
wild
for
to
you
you?
too.
Does that
Of
seem illegal
course.
to you?
Of course. And this is mob activities, right? But I think the part that gets lost, and I think you do a good job of this when you talk about things from the boots on the ground perspective, right? From the CEO's perspective. I know for myself, you have helped humanize those individuals in my mind, right?
Right.
Um,
Right.
where because I don't come from a world where
Correct.
I give a shit what their experiences are, right?
Correct.
Um, but now being in the real world for so long, you would like to think that some of that stuff kind of falls off a little bit,
Right.
and so hearing some of the things that you describe that the CEOs on the ground and it, those actual building cops and those actual tower cops and what their thoughts are and what they got to deal with is it makes it a little more understanding and I'm conditioned like kind of predisposed to think of course on the inmate side of thing
Yeah.
like these are real people, man. These folks have wives and mothers who travel ridiculous distances to come and see them for an hour or two. They people love these guys, and these guys love folks. And sure, they did what they did to get in prison, and
Right.
maybe they're programming how they're programming, right? And that's fine. Prison is about survival, and
Correct.
different people will decide what they feel is necessary for them to survive. Cool. As long as you're willing to lay in your bed, it's not my place to tell you how to fold the corners, right? But they're still human beings, right? They're still people. And when we're talking about the relationship between the government and its citizens, there should be an expectation there. And it's like the government, the machine is burning through these very human COs in the building and these very human, convicts and inmates equally, right? And it's
Equally.
wild that there's that it just continues, right? It's
Would you compare it to war and soldiers and politicians sending? I would.
politicians. Yeah. Government disregarding its people, right?
Exactly.
And that's a good analogy. Yeah. And what's crazy is
Would
at
you
least
compare it to the new generation of prison gang organizations?
yes,
Exactly.
yes.
It's all the same to me.
It's
I see it all.
well, and what's interesting about the analogy of war, right, is and obviously you have an inside look at this, right? But from the outside, when you talk about government and soldiers, sure, you have different branches in the military, you have different positions, but on that level, in that equation, the soldiers are the soldiers, and the politicians calling the shots are the politicians calling the shots. Here, it's like you have, the administration, the government, the politicians calling the
Right.
shots for CDCR. Then you have the soldiers, which
Yep.
are the COs, right, and
Yep.
the on the yard officers. But then there's this other body of people who, like, there's this other little mini war, so to speak, right, of COs and inmates. That's the classic green versus blue, and now you have this. I don't know what color they are, but you have these fucking people up here
Yellow,
that
bro.
are like running the blue, running the green through the machine. But like, you guys are their employees. We're supposed to be in a separate area getting run through the same machine. It's
Now, right now, you said green versus blue. In
mhm,
reality, yeah, technically, prison is prison. Prison still is green versus blue at the end of the day.
right,
What's your take on the whole facade of the California model when they're only showing handfuls of inmates butting it up with COs? What do you think about
right.
that propaganda?
Well, I think ties into what we're just saying. It shows a lack of regard for the humanity of green and blue alike. That's what I'm saying. Is it's like there's the traditional. Of course, your managers have the potential to take advantage of their staff, right? That's that relation. You guys are in relationship with each other.
Yeah,
But me as an inmate, I'm not. I'm not in relationship with you guys. I'm in my
right.
own little camp over here, right? And all that's getting muddied up now, where you're getting burned the same way that I'm getting burned. If we're both doing time, you as an employee, me as a resident, right? We're being lumped together. Like, hey, why
Yep.
don't you guys just be friends? At a time when it's like we're probably most aware of our mutual grievances to you. So you're saying, hey, you guys all get along. That's good for you. No, you're fucking both of us, right? Like it's
Yes,
it's you know what I mean? I don't
that's it.
it's just it's insane. And again, then the narrative and
And that's
the
that's what bothered me the most, bro. The narrative, it disgusts me. I don't think I would trip as much if CDCR came out and said, "Look, man, we're doing this. They're fucking killing each other. We're doing this.
mhm,
Peace."
right,
But they're like, "No, no, everything's cool. Everything is working."
right.
It's like, "Nah, motherfucker. Now you're lying. You're doing all kinds of crazy shit. It's
You know,
disgusting, bro."
it's what from so I think from the perspective of folks doing time and you fall within organizations, everybody's gonna mind somebody, right? That's just kind of way the prison works, especially on the GP side. Uh, I think there's a lot of folks that agree that hey, it's better if you just be a straight shooter. Just let me know
Absolutely.
what time it is, right? Is it It's the snake stuff. It's the politicking. It's the behind the back. It's the, oh yeah, homie, come over here. Don't trip. Everything's all good. Hey, fool, knock them down. Like, it's
And
that's the
people are
shit that
not
nobody
dumb.
likes.
And people are not dumb, Josh. People
Right.
have a clear understanding of what's going on everywhere
Right.
in the
And
world.
that's the shit that gets offensive. And it's like almost,
Yeah,
it's like
bro.
disrespectful. Like, fuck you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, everything's all good. I know it's not all good. Man, you think I'm an idiot, right?
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
goes down
definitely.
easier if you just call it what it is.
Give me the truth,
Right.
man. Give me the cold, hard fucking truth, and we'll figure this shit out. We'll keep it
Right.
pushing.
And I just, it's crazy. We talk about on a national scale, kind of a reckoning on the horizon somewhere, right? Whether it's in our lifetime or not, who knows?
Yeah.
People have been saying that for a long time, but it seems like we're moving closer and closer to a place of the us versus them, right? The average people versus the elite, the people versus their government, right? Like that tension, that abuse, the inequality is growing at such a rapid rate that at some point the scale just has to tip. When that point is, who knows? Because we could put up with a lot of shit. And there's almost a microcosm of that happening within CDCR where it's not as far-fetched as it would have been in the 90s, right? When I was in there.
Right.
To picture
an uprising,
COs families and convicts families networking and working together, and a point where COs and convicts both fucking lay the yard down together at some point of like, look, we ain't playing this game no more, right? And
maybe a murder of a CO, because they sure in the fuck didn't care about the 60 murders of an inmate.
Right. Right.
I'm gonna tell you too, like, bro, I'm sure you read books about Rome and the shoe. Right. To me, it reminds me of Rome, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, history repeats itself.
It does. And it's a young country, right? And so we're due for something. The status quo can't continue. And I think our prison system in California, for those that may not be able to see it on the national political scale, just look at it on the CDCR scale, and that's a microcosm of this can't keep going like this. At some point, those on the short end of the stick are going to be so fed up or so incentivized or so something.
Well, I was going to say two things, man. I was going to say like Nazi Germany and the Holocaust, right? How did that go on for so long? Mm-hmm. Because, man, there's some employees that would rather just keep their mouth shut and don't want to go against the Gestapo. There's some inmates that will play the game so well and slip through the cracks, right? Everybody's in it's chaos. Right now, everybody's in survival mode in the department. Yeah. But I was also going to say the wildfires in Los Angeles. You talk about microcosms. You want to talk about incompetence at the government official level.
Right.
Look at the mayor. Look at the fire chief. Look at the governor, Newsom.
Yeah.
Look at the results.
But
fucking LA went up in flames.
Yeah. Yeah. We were talking about it on a live the other day, just I think yesterday, the day before.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not from Southern California, but I'm pretty sure January is not fire season, Holmes.
Yeah.
Like where
it was evident there was no one, they were not prepared. And just as we wouldn't blame the COs and CDCR or the inmates in CDCR, is the same way I wouldn't blame the firefighters for this massive incident.
There's
more to it.
They're the workers.
Correct.
Right. They're the workers.
The worker bees.
But that's what I say is it at some point the workers, I think history shows, right, that at some point the workers build enough solidarity that they're like, hey, we can't. It's no longer in our it's this survival fight, right? Survival is no longer an option here. My best means of survival now is to force folks to pay attention. And you get random people, you get Luigi, right? Who's like, hey, this shit can't continue. I'm going to set my example. You get individuals, but that stuff gets written off, right?
What I did was an option. I walked away. Yeah. That was my answer to survival. Fucking walk away from here on my own terms, on my own 2 feet. Get the fuck out of here while I still can.
Yeah.
And then air out the dirty laundry. Now, what is change going to look like? What is an uprising going to look like? What is uniting going to look like? I think it's going to take a lengthy time.
Sure.
A lot of networking, a lot of behind the scenes networking. Like you said, the family members of inmates, COs, getting on the same team. And I guarantee you, we shocked CDCR headquarters when the inmates and the COs started teaming up, especially on my YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm.
And they had never experienced something like that before.
Right. Yeah, because if you have a loved one that's living in CDCR and you just want them to come home, right? And you want them to come home in one piece and then figure it out. And if you have a loved one that's working in CDCR, you just want them to come home at the end of their shift. It's those wives, right? Just to be very stereotypical, but those wives or ex-wives, right? Sitting at home, want the same thing for their guys, right? Those moms want the same thing for their sons. And they have a lot more in common than they do different, right? Because they're not invested in our little tribal games, right? They're just looking at it,
right?
Hey, that's my people, and I want my people home, and I want them to be safe. He has to go to work. He has to do his time, but that shouldn't be a death sentence, right?
But you said at some point they have to stand up, right? Stand up against the man. But I think what also plays a role is, what about the family members of inmates, that the inmates are actually thriving on a level 2 programming yard? They're getting to play with a dog. They're getting to jack off the captain. They're getting to get haircuts to the COs. When you interview one of those ladies, they're probably like, "Oh, we love CDCR. We love it. My loved one he got a college degree." Yeah, that is a fact. But that is one inmate, or that is 2 or 3 or 10 or maybe 100.
Right.
There's fucking 33,000 inmates.
Yeah. And you make a good point. Maybe that's why
it continues.
Maybe that's why certain groups get such special treatment, because that's the buffer, right? For every person who says, "Hey, I'm watching people get killed in prison," there's a person who says, "My husband's raising dogs for the blind and has 3 PhDs," right?
Yeah.
And so it offsets, right? In their minds, it offsets. But it's always a challenge to build when you have a similarly situated group of people, but some of them get a little preferential treatment. We've seen this a million times during the civil rights movement, right? Like that's government sabotage. That's the whole saboteur angle, right?
That's a trip, dude.
Hey, we'll look out for these guys, right? And then they're the example of what could be. Wow. But you're not inviting anybody else to that table. No, I don't want more people at the table. I just want this table to have a microphone. That's all, right?
Wow, dude.
Maybe that's part of it.
I'm telling, bro, these conversations are good, man, because I didn't see it like that, but definitely, like, that's what's happening for sure. And which is crazy, because when things are in their favor, there are no complaints. But God forbid they move that inmate, their loved one, to Charlie or RJD, then all of a sudden they've switched the flip and like, oh, CDCR sucks, this and that.
Right.
That's why I encourage people to just keep a neutral, open mind and understand the whole entire organization.
Yeah. Well, and I've dealt with some of those families early on in the integration thing. They had one position, but then their dude got moved to a yard, and all of a sudden he's in knife fights.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, no, wait. Right? What do you mean? This is what happens, right?
Right.
This is what you were okay with. I didn't think it was going to be like that. Okay, well, you didn't want to believe it was going to be that way, right? But I think that's the other part too. Maybe is over time, the evidence gets to outweigh the narrative eventually.
Let's also talk about another key factor. CDCR has a stranglehold on their employees. They are not allowed to communicate to anybody on the outside. And I've been at it for 2 years and, barely making like leeway.
Right.
But when they controlled, I say controlled, past tense, the narrative, that played a huge role in it. Because I don't think they control the narrative any longer.
Hmm.
Do you think they control the narrative?
I don't think the same. I think social media
Controls the narrative,
changes
huh?
that. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that changes that where it's, and you see the same thing from, from the convict side of things, right?
Yeah.
Like it's
Right.
you, which I may not agree with everything that ends up on YouTube, or I may not agree with everybody's position.
Right.
There's a lot of diverse opinions on here in terms of people that have done time, and I leave that to whoever has whatever opinion. So, but the reality is, sometimes that stuff does shake things up in there, right? You're challenging the narrative, whether you're right or wrong. It's an option. It's an alternative. There didn't used to be any alternative. Maybe the
Right.
alternative is bullshit. Maybe the alternative is actually shedding light in a dark corner, right? Maybe it's somewhere in between. But just the fact that an alternative exists,
True.
there was no space for that before, right?
Right.
It you couldn't go somewhere for the other point of view, it's and
Correct.
and I think the same thing, it seems like, is happening with COs, and I think you're kind of spearheading that in terms of California, right? Of
Then you wonder
shedding that
why
light.
didn't CDCR come after me thus far? Because everything I've said is documented, literally on black and white, dude. That's
Yeah,
what protects me.
yeah, yeah. That's well, and in the legal side of fighting things, right?
Right.
The truth is still a pretty good defense, right? We get
Yes.
down into the mud, and
Right.
you're just kind of slanging them. Well, then it's just, whose balls are bigger, right? But in
Yeah.
the official fight, it's the truth still, still protects you.
What do you
So
think of that level 4 GP killer escaping, man? Because I'm sure that wasn't a common thing back in the day.
it never happened. That never happened. That never happened.
But it just
Hey,
goes to show you the state of the department.
so we had an automotive department in Solano, right? There was an automotive department, but it was up on the hill, right? So the way Solano worked is you gotta go through all kinds of checkpoints to get up on this hill, and that's where the vocational stuff was. And there was an electrician class, there was an automotive thing, everything else. Rumor is, I don't know if it's true, because rumors fly in prison, right? So hey man, did you hear what happened here right before you came? No, and then fuck you never know what you're gonna hear, right?
Right.
But word on the curb was some level 3 decided he was gonna smash off in a car from the automotive, right?
Okay.
And tried it, like got shot. He didn't win, right? He didn't. What he did not do is he did not escape. He did not go driving down 80, right?
Yeah.
Just kicking it with the top down and his hair in the wind. That's what he
Yeah.
didn't do. He didn't leave the prison grounds. And they made all kinds of changes around the condition that cars could be in when you worked on them, right? Like, why the fuck we letting these guys work on running cars, right? That's probably not a good idea, because they're in
Yeah.
prison and they wouldn't like to be here. It's there was an attitude against anything like that, man. If you ran the track too often and too much,
Yes.
IGI was gonna come out, snatch you up, and be like,
What are you getting in
"What are you
shape
doing?
for?
What are you doing?" Like, it's you run across the yard the wrong way, and watch how fast they shoot you, right? Like,
Yeah.
it. I transported a lot, right? I had surgery in prison. I've been to different joints, like SUP programs, ad segs, institutional hospitals, outside hospitals. So I got to bounce around a little bit. I never had a shot, Holmes. I did, handcuff key or not, right? Handcuff keys
Right.
have been a
Right.
common thing even back then, right? That's not anything new. That's not
Right.
sophisticated technology. But that's why they have the boxes. That's why they put the boxes on the cuffs. You can't get your hand over there. Like,
Right. Well, it boils
they
down to opportunity.
right. There
Mhm.
was never that I can recall, there wasn't even a time that I fantasized like, fuck, if I had more time, I would make this risk. No, there's nothing to do. The fact that this guy, and props to him, I hope that he's somewhere where he never comes back to prison, right? I hope he's not out there hurting people.
I don't think
Right?
he's hurting people, man, because I think he just want to get the fuck out of there,
Yeah,
dude.
I think it's I think he's an example of a lifer who got a date early, but they're rehabilitated, and so now they're, they say the recidivism rate for dudes that have done a decent stretch of time is pretty fucking low. He did a decent stretch of time, I think.
Oh shit.
And so I hope that's the case. And if that is the case, man, more power to that dude, and I'm rooting for him, but it's got to be embarrassing.
Bro,
But
they brushed it under the rug like it didn't even happen.
Noise.
They just fucking moved. Bro, like on the next day on the CDCR website, they posted a video. I don't know. I can't even keep up.
All right, they were like planting a garden somewhere.
Planting a garden, yeah,
right.
Bro. And it's like, really? You
Right.
read the comment section. It's like, hey, talk about the fucking inmate that escaped. Talk about.
Right.
It's just ridiculous.
No, it was the news for a couple days. And then the only time I hear about it is if somebody brings it up on YouTube.
Yeah.
Right. And
I do it as a joke, bro, because I find that to be hilarious.
Right. It's no AP. I mean, I'm sure I said when it happened, and maybe I'm wrong, and the egg is on my face, but I was like, dude, this may not be in the headlines, but there are some serious law enforcement officials that are going to eat, sleep, and breathe finding this fucking dude. And now I'm questioning, maybe that's not necessarily true.
Well, let's talk about politicians and pawns, the soldiers, SSU agents. No disrespect. I know a lot of SSU agents, U.S. Marshals. You mean to tell me that because of the incompetence of your boss up at the top, an inmate release, now you got to run around like a dumbass looking for this fucking dude? Like maybe in your head you can trick yourself to think like, oh, this is so cool. I have a gun, I have night vision, I have a bulletproof vest. In reality, the higher ups fucked up. Now they're sending your ass out there to go look for this fucking guy, like an idiot. That's where I see it now. 2 years out of the game, you're doing the fucking work of the idiots.
Right.
You know what I mean? They created a fucking man. What are they gonna do? High five each other when they catch them? Oh yeah, we did it. That should have never happened.
It's funny because that sounds like what I've heard, and I've been critical of it, and I stand on the criticism, but in this example, it sounds like the mindset of cops in California where they were like, hey, we're not going to respond to these calls anymore because we run across the same dude down the street the next day. And so why bother? Which in my opinion, I'm like, okay, cool. So now you want to change all these laws to make shit hell for everybody else. And now you feel inspired to do your job that you're handsomely paid for. Must be fucking nice that I don't feel motivated to work today. So I'm still critical of that. Like I don't buy that shit. But in certain situations of extreme incompetence, I guess I sort of picture that there's just a bunch of cops, gung-ho, bounty hunter, like we're not gonna let you get the best of us type thing. But maybe
they thoroughly enjoy their job, right? Why wouldn't you, man? It's cool. I could, if in my head I still had that low level base of thinking, or not. I take that back. It sounded kind of disrespectful. If I didn't have such an insight on how things work, such as the war in Iraq, they lied to us and said there was weapons of mass destruction.
Right.
Had I known there was really no weapons of mass destruction, probably would have left a different taste in my mouth, as opposed to, you know what I mean?
Right.
So if maybe at their level, they see, oh shit, we had an inmate escape. Fuck the politics. It doesn't matter. We got to find this guy. And they're trained very well. They're equipped very well. They have the resources.
Yeah.
They have the physiques. I mean, these dudes are no joke, right?
Right.
They probably love it. But in reality, you're just a fucking pawn in the game, man. No disrespect.
Yeah, it's like the dog in the dog fighting ring. You know,
And I did that for
the
20
dog
years.
loves
Man.
it, but you know, in the grand scheme of things, it ain't shit.
Yeah, dude. I just got tired of being the pawn, bro. For
Yeah.
20 years, man. That's fucking exhausting.
Look, man, I always appreciate our conversations. I know you got a bunch of stuff going on. We've been on here for close to an hour, and
Nice.
people's attention spans are limited, but I think we keep them locked in. I appreciate you. I appreciate your content. You know, I've said that from jump, and
Likewise.
and yeah, well, I guess we'll just stay tuned for the next
We'll meet
episode,
again,
right?
bro. It's fucking cool as fuck.
And so, you know, I strongly encourage everybody. I think everybody that watches my channel already knows about your channel, and probably vice versa. But you know, support both, and yeah, you keep staying safe and keep making noise. Looking forward to this documentary coming out. I don't know if you want to speak to that real quick before we go.
Documentary Grunt comes out on February 1st, in less than a month, on a major streaming platform, and that entails my whole entire deployment in Iraq in 2004 and the struggles. There was post-traumatic stress disorder and alcoholism when I got back.
There you go. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that, man. I think it's gonna be insightful. So
thank you.
All right, brother. You take care of yourself, man.
You too, man. Talk to you later, dude.
All right.
Late.